A large house made of wood, surrounded by trees.
Welcome to Twin Peaks The Gifted
And the Damned.
My name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter under the Twitter handle Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter. And with me, as always, the guy I keep in my belly like Janie's ring. It's Mork. Mork, how you doing?
I am doing great, Bubba. How are you? You look fantastic today.
I feel kind of fantastic.
Good.
We are going to review part 5 of Twin Peaks, a.k.a. Twin Peaks The Return.
5 down, 13 to go.
It still feels like we're at the very beginning of a story. Let's be honest. But, hey, we're going to review it. Spoilers for all of Twin Peaks up to part 5. Everything, the books, the characters, and to be honest, the credits. Sometimes you watch the show and it isn't till the end credits where you learn the most, including how some guy who doesn't realize no means no is an actual member of the Horn family.
Yeah, he's definitely taking after somebody in his family. We don't know who exactly. But yeah,
right, we don't know.
He's a bit too much of a cad for my life. When I first saw him, I thought for a second that he had been in the Twilight movies. I thought, and I
he was a glowing vampire.
I realized we have a poor man's Robert Pattinson on our hands. But
we'll
turned out to be even more interesting than that.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a second. First off, Mork, let's go ahead and rank part 5 of this 18-part extravaganza. What is your ranking out of 10?
I gotta give it, I'm sad to say, 5 double Fs.
Double Fs?
Forgetful federales.
Hey, no.
Coop is still living in Dougie's world. He's eating Dougie's breakfast. He's going to Dougie's job. He's not drinking Dougie's coffee. He's drinking Frank's coffee. But, yeah, he's just kind of waiting to come back, and we're all sitting here waiting patiently with him.
Once again, Mork, you are my doppelganger. You are Doppel Bubba.
Excellent.
You are Mr. B over there.
Good.
Because you love those first 2 hours. You went 10 out of 10, and you've slowly been ranking these parts lower. I am going to rank this. Actually, before I give my ranking, let me say that I admittedly am never going to love this slow Lynchian pace that he is forcing on all of us.
Right.
But that said, I was tough on those first couple, and it gets better and better and better. And this, part 4 was my favorite part of them, and now part 5 is my favorite part of them. So I'm going to rank this. I'm not actually going to go up on my ranking, but I'm going to give this 8 double I's out of 10. 8 double I's out of 10.
Idiotic investigators?
Incorrect.
Okay.
Incredible interviews.
Oh.
Mike Nelson Snake is back, baby. He's back. He's going to get me a great deal on a Chevy.
He's going to do it. He doesn't have to talk to his manager.
Oh, no.
He does it. He knows what a good deal is.
You saw how messy and busy his office was there at the car dealership. He's doing it. And he's also giving out wonderful advice to inspiring applicants. And I will never love this slow Lynch pace. But within this, and I've kind of thought this probably since the very beginning, but this episode gives me a little bit more. Within this, there is some kind of twisty, knotty story that if it could just speed up the pace, I'd be 10 out of 10. But as it is, each little element of the story has little things that intrigue me.
Okay.
And so because of that, I think this show may actually be better binged. If, dear Lord, who could binge 18 hours? There are only so many hours. That would be a heck of a binge.
Well, that terrible mother across the street from Dougie's Love Palace.
Yeah,
she
over
could
there
probably binge.
Yeah, but
she can handle
I'm down with it. I really enjoyed this episode. I'll get deeper into it. But all these twisty plots and every aspect on previous episodes, on previous parts, there'd be, I like Twin Peaks, but I didn't like South Dakota. This episode, I like South Dakota, but I didn't like Vegas. There'd be little things that I didn't like. Each one now has enough of intrigue to where I'm interested to see where it goes. So I'm high. I'm ready to binge that we can't binge. We got to wait
sadly
every week And now just for 1 hour. It's tough to only have 1 hour where we were getting a 2-hour fix. Mm-hmm. Showtime, give us more.
Exactly. Give us more, just like Caleb Landry Jones.
Needs to get more on his resume.
And also in terms of, what do they call it, the Peruvian dancing powder.
I've never heard, I assume, cocaine called the Peruvian dancing powder. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, whatever.
Your whatever is always driving me nuts. Yeah, it's not true in any possible universe, except maybe the universe of a dream. In this episode, right at the top, we even get more hints that maybe we're living inside a dream. That's what Philip Jeffrey said back in Fire Walk with Me. And there are parts of this episode where once we dive into it proper, maybe we are in dream world, because there are little things that, that's how a dream would, or at least how my dreams would react. So we're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
At the top of every podcast, because we're having a huge prize giveaway at the end, once we get to part 18, we're going to be giving away a lot of prizes to people I like to call Double L.
Double L's.
Loyal listeners. So we have some great stuff from the Festival of Disruption. We have some great artwork. We have posters. We have T-shirts. We're going to be giving away
all sorts of amazing things.
That's exactly right. And so the way you can be eligible, listeners, is you go to iTunes and give us a written review. Sadly, you just can't click like 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. You actually have to write a review. But if you write a review and then like our Facebook page, facebook.com/double P podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcasts, plural, podcast plural, facebook.com/double P podcast. Like the page, give us a written iTunes review. You're eligible to win. And you guys have been kind enough to keep giving us wonderful reviews. So we got 4 new from the USA iTunes Store, 1 new from the UK iTunes Store. Let's burn through them real quick. Mork, why don't you start us off?
This is from Octool. Quite good, almost 5s. This is a 4-star review. There are a lot of poor quality Twin Peaks podcasts.
Hey.
Well, thanks for finding us. Out there nowadays where the hosts don't know what they're talking about. These guys do know their stuff. They combine the nerdy details with some humor. I can't give them 5 stars because they don't seem to like the wonderful surrealism that David Lynch is so good at. They seem concerned and disappointed where too much takes place in the Red Room Black Lodge. That is silly on their part. Nonetheless, other than that tremendous flaw, the podcast is solid, and the hosts are both knowledgeable and affable. Wow, okay. I'm going to read one more from our buddy Heath Centazzo. Bubba Walks with Me, 5 stars. Oh, man. Best Twin Peaks podcast out there. You need passion and knowledge to talk about the show, and Agent Mork and Bubba Renault bring it 100%. Bubba and Mork have really added to my enjoyment of the show. This podcast is the essential companion for this amazing journey. Love you guys. Well, that's what my log says. Awesome. Thanks so much, Heath.
Thank you so much. That's at Heath Solo, I'm pretty sure, on Twitter. Continuing on, we got another one from the USA iTunes Store. It's called Informatively Funny. 5 stars from Knife Boot 28. Ooh. They write, I started listening to this podcast about 6 weeks ago to gear up for Season 3.
Good.
It fit the bill. Charismatic hosts present double I. Intriguing ideas and intelligent talking points about the world of Twin Peaks. Their skill at balancing knowledge with humor is what keeps me coming back. Thank you so much, Knife Boot 28.
By far the best Knife Boot.
Excellent. And we had one last one here in the USA iTunes Store. It's from Kaz K2000. Kaz 2000. 5 stars. It says, sharing time with fellow obsessives. It's great to have your podcast this time around. Really helped my refresh of the original series, especially since my most recent Double R recent rewatch and attempt to introduce the husband to my favorite TV show landscape was completely solo. Oh no. The virtual water cooler proof the interwebs can be a force for good. Continue digging deep, or I just might think this is all in my head.
Wait a minute.
Thank you so much. And we got one from the
good old
UK iTunes Store.
Hell yeah. 5 stars by Biggie Jim. Mork and Bubba and the Damned are probably the slickest Twin Peaks fan cast out there and can always be relied upon for alternative perspective on all things Peaks. Spoiler alert, sweeps. It's very refreshing to see some pushback on various received Twin Peaks myth, and people tend not to question, although I rarely agree with their conclusions.
Good.
I'm a card-carrying quadruple L.
Quadruple L?
Loyal, languid Lynch lover.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Here's to many more White Lodge minutes and the Damned. Awesome.
Thanks. Awesome.
It's IHHBGGCGM. in case it's confused with any other gyms on iTunes.
Right.
Thank you so much.
If they win a prize, we really are going to have to spell that out.
Yeah, we're going to have some problems.
So once again, just give us a written iTunes review, like the Facebook page, you're eligible to win. When we get to part 18, we're giving away a massive...
It's a horse. We're giving away a horse.
We are going to give away so much stuff. Dr. Amp is going to have to get out the shovels and dig on all these prizes. We've got them.
Dr. Amp will need extra hip boots because he'll be floating in prizes.
So let's get to it. Mork, this episode jumped around an awful lot.
A little bit.
But we're going to start in everybody's favorite small town up in Washington State.
Eastern and or Western.
Twin Peaks. And we're going to start with my double I, Mike Nelson. Like many, I think, original fans who watched the original series, I think when Mike stopped being a heel and did the anti-heel turn and started being sweet on Nadine, I kind of grew to love old Snake, the man. Mike is the man, Mike Nelson.
Mike is the man, although Nadine was super strong. Nadine sort of learned from the Richard Horne school of
aggression, right? That's true.
Of courtship. So I don't know if Mike had much of a chance, but it was fun to see them together. It's fun to see him back now, and he's hanging out. He's admonishing a young Stephen Burnett, who we later learn also from the credits, that he is married to Shelley's daughter, Becky.
Holy smoke.
But because of this, he failed this interview. Becky needs to go ask her mom for even more money, which apparently is a startling and terrifying trend. More for Norma than for Shelley.
Well, we'll get to Shelley and Becky and that situation in just one sec, because I want to stay on the man, on Snake.
Let's do it.
Mike Nelson, because he is wearing a wedding ring. And later in the episode, Nadine is wearing a wedding ring.
That is true.
Is it possible that they're married, Mork? Is it possible that these two crazy lovebirds have finally got together and decided to
100%
link up? Now, admittedly, once again, you have to go to the credits to find out some of this stuff. In other words, if they are married, Nadine did not take Mike's name. She's still listed as Nadine Hurley in the credits.
Yeah.
But I loved seeing Mike. There isn't much flow because they jump around from location to location much. But I did like Mike, and I think we definitely got across a point about good old Steven.
Yeah.
And we had heard back at the end of part 2 when Shelley was telling her friends about, hey, Becky's ended up with a terrible man. And this is our first impression of him, and he's pretty terrible.
Yeah, no, he's not the best. He's attempted to grow a mustache, and it actually lines up pretty good with his car. So I would say it's an appropriate wispy mustache. But he takes off. He runs out. He's very, very upset. And then we cut to the sheriff's station where we meet
Frank Truman's wife,
Doris.
And before we meet Doris, though, we do have to acknowledge that this may be tough for longtime Twin Peaks fans, for us Peakers, for us members of Coop.
Yeah.
For everybody to accept that Harry Truman seemingly isn't on the show. We get these updates about him that he's in the hospital and not doing well.
He might be in the hospital. He also just might be hiding from Doris. If
his sister-in-law is painful, is what you're saying?
Yeah, if he's hiding from her. How do you think Doris would do in an interview with Mike? That's what I'd like to see. If they can cross those streams, I'll be very, very excited. But we're going to have to wait to
Doris
find out.
has the same attitude as my boy Mike. She's like, I'm not putting up with any B to the S.
No, she's very demanding. And
why? Sorry to interrupt you there, Mork.
No problem.
Once again, we're going to try to go deep on some of these things. Why do you think Frank Truman is hiding in Hawk's office?
I don't know. He doesn't seem to be trying very hard
to hide from his wife.
To be hiding from his wife. You know, there's not that many places to hide in the sheriff's station, but he's there. Maybe he just wants some quiet. Maybe he feels uncomfortable talking to Harry while sitting in Harry's old office. I don't know.
No, that's a good call.
I don't know, but he's in Deputy Chief Hawk's office.
Should this give me hope? Should this give longtime Twin Peaks fans hope that we're actually going to see Michael Aunt Keene as Harry Truman? If the fact they keep bringing him up?
Yeah, it's giving me hope.
Okay, I hope so. He's not among the listed cast members that they released way back when.
Right.
But we already know some people have shown up who weren't in that list. Admittedly, none as big as Michael Aunt Keene, but we're hoping.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Yeah, no, I'm going to hold out hope. I could stand to see little Harry Truman in the next 13 episodes.
So, did you have any opinion on this scene when Doris does show up? Is your opinion that just Frank Truman chose wisely. What's your thought process?
My thought process was Doris is the new Nadine and Frank is the new Big Ed.
Oh, that's a good call. I like that.
Which, and I love Robert Forster, and he's a terrific actor, and he looks like he could be a sheriff of a semi-small town in eastern and or western Washington State. But I'd like to spend a little bit of time with our boy, Everett McGill, Big Ed Hurley. And
so you're saying we're getting a watered-down version of that dynamic here.
Well, that's certainly what it seems like now. Doris does not seem to be as enterprising as Nadine. I don't know if she's invented any silent drapes or the modern equivalent. So maybe a shield for your cell phone or something to straighten. Yeah,
you're just kind of rambling. You don't have an end sentence. You ever wonder why we say short declarative sentence there, Mork?
Well, I know exactly why.
Okay,
I do. Trust me, but. Doris seems to be in a hurry to double B, bust balls.
Oh yeah,
of good old Frank, and I didn't really enjoy this. We'll see more, but it does make me a little nervous that we don't really have at this point. It doesn't feel like we have a couple to root for. And
a happy couple.
Exactly. Well, yeah, to root for staying together. And, we had a bunch of them, obviously, in seasons 1 and 2. Not so much Fire Walk with Me. But
no, not at all.
Not really. But I'd like to see that, and maybe that's going to come, because as we've long talked about, this very much is a soap opera.
The old show was. This show feels more like a surreal quest for identity. Identity quest,
sure,
is what I'm going to call it.
All right, that could be, yeah, that could be, but that kind of thing is only so rewarding. Right now, the best relationship we've seen at this point is Jade and Dougie. So,
hey, now one minor thing I thought was interesting, Mork, in this Doris Truman rant at her husband Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Doris was complaining about her father's car.
Yeah,
and she said she didn't want her father to ride around in some death trap. And Sheriff Frank Truman said, Sammy looked at it, and it's going to be okay. And I thought it was real weird that if somebody was going to look at a car and make sure it was okay, it wasn't Big Ed. Why didn't he say, well, Big Ed looked at the car, it's fine? Instead, he said this Sammy guy looked at it. So I thought that was very interesting. Hopefully, Big Ed is still running the gas farm, still checking out cars. Maybe he's hired Sammy, but I want to see him.
I'm pretty sure that not only did he hire Sammy, but Sammy did not have to turn in a resume.
We're staying in Twin Peaks because we cut to a place we have wanted to go, a place that feels like home, a place which has wonderful specials,
that
has delicious things, that has a new paint job which says Double R to go, RR to go. We're back at the Double R Diner, and we see Norma. This is wonderful. I love this. I loved as soon as we saw the Double R, and then we cut to Norma doing the books.
Oh, yeah, that's what she's got to do.
Man, I was excited when we cut away from Norma. As soon as we cut away, eagle-eye viewers, I only found this out from the credits, but as we cut away, we see a waitress in a gray sweater in the distance, and it's Heidi, the German waitress Heidi from the premiere, from the season 2 finale and Fire Walk with Me. She's back there. She's still working at the Double R, as is Shelley. The whole gang's back together. Mork, how can you be down? This is awesome.
Well, I'm glad to see her again. She didn't get to do much this episode. She might still be.
This
exhausted.
is an Easter egg almost. It's fine.
She might still be exhausted from what she did before work with her long-suffering husband. But it's nice to see, and I'd like to think that they're preparing. They're either recovering from a recent or preparing for a future visit from MT Wentz. But I don't know if that's actually happening. But yeah, so they're hanging out and they've got their thing going. Norma's doing the books.
Doing the books.
She's taking up a booth. There are some customers who might want to sit there.
Tough luck, customers. Norma, she even had a phone there at the booth. Did you see that? Norma's got her phone out there. She's
not kidding around.
Now, before we get to the kind of the meat of the scene and our introduction to Becky and Becky's bad situation, how do you feel emotionally knowing that some of these characters seem to have been frozen in place? We've seen people like Jerry Horn, who has gone a transformation over these 25 years into a marijuana-selling hippie almost.
Right.
But Shelley, Norma, even Heidi, they're trapped here. They're almost trapped in time. Are you cool? Are you happy with them? Because I would say when you said we don't have a couple to root for, the support that Norma and Shelley always gave in the original series, and seeing them here, yes, it's not the romance couple, but seeing them...
Not yet.
And okay, all right, please.
This is Showtime we're talking about, so come on.
But seeing them together, they're a power couple themselves. I love seeing them.
Okay.
Even if I'm a bit disappointed that Shelley kind of hasn't grown in some ways.
She doesn't seem to have grown, but if you think about what this lady's been through...
this lady being...
Shelley.
Shelley, okay.
You think about what she's been through in terms of between Leo and Bobby and all the stuff that she's had to put up with. Normalcy is probably just fine for her. Unfortunately, she's apparently got... Her daughter is married to some cokehead.
Her daughter's married to another Leo, wouldn't you say?
Well, not that bad.
Oh, that we know so far. That's true.
Right.
But Shelley, when she was younger, 25 years ago, she liked double Bs.
Double Bs?
Bad boys.
Oh,
she married Leo, who...
She dated Rick Mulhorn.
Yes.
Keep going.
So here her daughter is kind of repeating the mistakes of the past. Would you not say that's true?
I would definitely say that's true, but Leo never seemed to share his cocaine with anybody. He was always yelling at people, give me my money or give me my cocaine. Mm-hmm. So this guy, he's a bit of a deadbeat, but he shares. He shares what he has. I'll give him that.
Norma is a concerned friend. You would think Norma smiles as soon as she sees Becky.
Sure.
But as soon as she realizes what's happening, and that here is the daughter, and we find out from the credits, married daughter.
Yeah.
This is Shelley's daughter is married to this scumbag Stephen Burnett. And the fact that she's still asking for money.
Right.
And Becky's...
She's got a job. She's working at the bakery, it looks like.
Yeah, Becky's does look like she's dressed for work at a place that's apparently called the Sweet Loaf, which sounds like a bakery. And so, yeah, but wouldn't it be disappointing to you if... you saw your friend's daughter constantly begging for money. She's married. And admittedly, you can hear Becky's talking about her husband, Stephen, saying, oh, he will get a job. So this is kind of disappointing. It's sad. They really are. Now, Shelley, we never knew anything about her parents back in season 1 and season 2. So it's not like she could go to people and ask for money and say, hey, can you loan me something while Leo's in a coma. Mm-hmm. But it's still tough seeing a girl Shelley like this.
It is. I'm okay seeing them all working together because I could definitely buy, and this is the kind of conjecture, I'm not sure if it's even worth mentioning, but Norma seems like a fair boss. She treats people like family. So she, who knows? Shelley could be making a hell of a lot more money at the Double R than she would at any other diner and living a comfortable life. She's going out and hanging out at the Roadhouse with her friends and catching up
it's a happy life. Yeah, I don't want to judge it too harshly. So.
She seems like she's in an okay spot, but for her loser daughter.
Well, that's a tough way to judge poor Becky, but Becky is in a bad thing.
Just beginning to judge.
Once we see Stevens rocking the Trans Am Firebird.
Yeah, you understand why they got married. That is totally fair.
Right. I mean, Pontiac, for listeners, Pontiac's been out of business for a while, so this classic car Stephen's driving, it's nothing but trouble.
It's pretty cherry, if you ask me. It's got the T-top. It's got the cool velvet seats, ribbed velvet seats. This is perfect. Now,
the seats are a bit like the red curtains in the red room.
Oh, that's genius. That's an eagle eye. I did not like this exchange.
The exchange between Stephen and Becky.
Right. I didn't care for it. It struck me as real. I believed it. And so that's a good place to start, but I just hope it's not completely miserable because...
Well, Becky's part of this. It's not just that she married a loser. It's that she seems to enjoy a little, how did you describe it earlier, Peruvian, the phrase that's sweeping the drug world, Peruvian nose candy, you just make up BS and then we have to accept...
Okay. Dancing powder.
Okay, the Peruvian dancing powder. So Becky's not an innocent... She's not Snow White. She's involved in this, too. She may be sniffing Snow White, but...
But just like Shelley was not completely innocent either. I mean,
true.
She's married to Leo, but she's also sleeping with Bobby. She's not Donna.
That's true. We almost don't have a Donna yet so far in this show, would you say? Not only do we not actually have actual Donna,
right.
We don't have what you would call a Donna substitute. Are Becky and Stephen our quote-unquote substitute? Is it just history repeating itself, or are we supposed to look at these two and think... Mm-hmm. Bobby and Shelley from 25 years ago, because they don't quite have that same feel, if you ask me.
Sure, or I'll take it a step further, and what I hope we're not watching is Bobby and Laura.
Oh no, that's a good call.
So she looks like she's 25, and
right.
I'm guessing she's about that age or a couple years younger, but so a little older than Laura was obviously, but she's blonde and she's beautiful and she's hanging out with cokeheads. So
no, I think that's a great call.
This may not be where we want it to go. After she imbibes a little bit, the overhead shot of her, as she tilts her head back. I actually thought was a beautiful shot. Yeah. Bad influence, David Lynch, telling people to take cocaine.
Yeah, the film is a bit overexposed because she's almost like an angelic white face against this bright red car seat, and she's happy.
Yeah. This is basically as good as it gets for Becky, it seems like, which is quite sad.
Would it depress you if Becky's father is Deputy Bobby? Do you want her to be the child of Deputy Bobby and Shelley?
I'd certainly be curious to find out who that is, but I really only care if it's going to have some sort of impact on what we're going to see for the next 13 hours. Based on what we've seen so far, I don't know if it's just going to be a fun little detail or if it's going to be a big part of the story as it unfolds. So,
well, you know what? I think maybe that's why your ranking's a little low. For me, I think we are going to get some sort of maybe the Emperor has no clothes, but like I said, each little story strand is intriguing me. You're right. There's not much of a story other than, once again, history repeating itself and drugs being mixed into this. But it did intrigue me. This storyline does intrigue me. I do want to see where it goes. Continuing in Twin Peaks here in Part 5, we then cut to the sheriff's station. Deputy Chief Hawk and Andy are still reviewing the Laura Palmer case, and Andy is specifically looking for Indians. Mm-hmm. And Andy, because on the old show, would occasionally stumble into the correct thing. Mm-hmm. We always remember with
the boot.
Yeah, at Leo Johnson's house, he actually stumbled onto an important clue of the Circle brand boot. And so I almost wonder if this is a clue, if we are supposed to be looking for Indians, because that's what Andy's looking for. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's an offensive term nowadays. But for some reason, I think that's almost a clue to tell us to look for him.
I would agree with that. And they're obviously motivated not just by the log lady telling them to look, but the fact that if they sit around and wait too long, Lucy's probably going to eat the rest of the evidence. So they need to get to work. So we just see them for a minute, and then we hop over
to Dr. Amp's
place. To the
place.
Middle of the woods, Dr. Jacoby, who has become essentially the Alex Jones of the Pacific Northwest.
Do you think, when I saw this scene, I'd had a lot of trouble with watching the paint dry scenes with the shovels and painting the shovels. Mm-hmm. But when I saw this scene, my first thought was, oh, great, another Twin Peaks podcast. Now we got to compete against Dr. Amp. Oh, brother, there's so many out there.
I know. Dr. Amp he does have a bit of an edge on us, but we'll do our best. I enjoyed this. He was inspired. He was active. He was doing something. He was saying something that he felt was important, and he's got an audience.
He does have an audience. He has Jerry Horn out in the woods streaming it. It's great. Yeah, Nadine's at her desk.
At home.
Oh.
When do you think Dr. Amp asks for written iTunes reviews? and do you think he gives...
You got to like Dr. Amp's Facebook page, Mork.
I just want to point out to our double L's.
Double L's?
We give prizes away here, and Dr. Amp is selling shovels.
Right. He's smarter than we are. Dr. Amp.
Well, he's a doctor, of course.
And Dr. Amp, he places his light into the camera. That's a big no-no, Dr. Amp. You're not supposed to do this.
No, it's a special light, too.
Oh, that's true. What did you think about seeing Nadine again? Isn't it great to see Nadine? Oh, all the old favorites. I know so many people say this isn't an exercise in nostalgia. This isn't an exercise in nostalgia. But I really, really, really like these nostalgic moments. Seeing Nadine, it tickled me to no end. She didn't really have much to do other than be a loyal fan, a double L for Dr. Amp.
Right.
And so I really liked it a lot. I thought it was great.
I think it could turn into something. It hasn't quite yet. It's nice to see somebody from the old series who was more of an incidental character. He was definitely involved, but he was more on the periphery of everything that was going on in seasons 1 and 2. If he can be central and taking up some sort of mantle from I don't know who, maybe just picking up where Ben Horn left off, where, they were trying to save and then not save the pine weasel or the tree weasel, or what the hell was it?
Yes, the pine weasel.
The pine weasel, yeah.
So your point being?
My point being, if the tradition of civil disobedience continues in Twin Peaks.
Heck yeah. Now, one thing happens, and maybe this is just my mind working, maybe it's the way my mind is not supposed to work, but when I saw Dr. Jacoby, or should I call him Dr. Amp, stick his flashlight into the lens of the camera, it made me think about how in Dougie Jones / Mr. Jackpot Coops, he sees that light flash on the guy, and then he says, "You're lying." And so I thought it somehow was the flashlight pointed into the camera, then showing up on that guy's face somehow in Vegas at a different time. And I was trying to figure out, because I didn't understand earlier in the episode when that light showed on Tom Sizemore's face and Dougie Coop, Mr. Jackpots, whatever you want to call him, said, "You're lying." I kind of thought, is this somehow special flashlight of Dr. Jacoby? Is that what inspired it?
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. I think what we're seeing a lot of, and that's an interesting point in the sense that, I would say literally no.
Right. Could it possibly do it?
But there's a lot of themes that are just rubbing up against each other ever so gently. I'd like to see them a little bit more intertwined and a little bit more.
I think it's coming. That's why I'm still high on it. But
no, but I think that's a good point. Right now, we're kind of, it's just a little too ethereal for me at this point.
That's true. But Dr. Amp Jacoby, he does call it a cosmic flashlight, and so who's to say?
Right.
It penetrates, it beams, and it exposes things. So I'm going with it until I am proven wrong.
Okay, fair enough.
Would you, if you were a fan, would you buy the Golden Shovel to dig yourself out of this trouble?
It depends how long I've been watching or listening to Dr. Amp.
Okay.
If I had won some prizes from him in the past, then I probably would think about forking over $30 and sending it into P.O. Box. It was P.O. Box 479. Do we add that to the list?
All right,
to our numerology?
We need to get them all done. We need to figure them all out, because his ad about digging yourself out of the dirt, it's important. It's an important thing for the soul.
Yeah.
Do you believe this is a natural progression of where Dr. Amp would be in his life, meaning Dr. Jacoby?
Sure. Yeah, I can see him turning into an old crank in the woods, 100%. I mean, in part of it is what he talks about in terms of how much he failed Laura in the Secret
History. That's what I was going to say. If I had not read The Secret History, this kind of hard left turn for Dr. Jacoby really would have thrown me. But having read that, and so spoiler alert for the Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, in that what you were referring to, Mork, is we find out Dr. Jacoby lost his license and kind of... Well, he fell apart.
He surrendered his license.
Yeah, fell apart after the Laura situation, and he had to do a lot of soul searching. And so I could see somebody suddenly saying, okay, I got to get a shit digging shovel.
Right. Yeah, and I get them and make them and sell them. He has at least 5, so it's...
Right, he sure does.
So he's going to make $150 out of this, so this is good.
He's going to do good. So real quickly, once again, we kind of went past Nadine. In the original series, Mork, you were real tough on Nadine at times.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna
stay that way?
Yeah, that's not changing.
Okay, so we go to the Roadhouse, and when we cut to the Roadhouse in this episode, I suddenly thought to myself, is that it? Is the episode over? You got to be kidding me.
Right.
And I actually have liked all the music in the Roadhouse, but there was something about kind of the almost wicked vibe that this band had that I really liked. Mm-hmm. And I liked that there was a story beat here at the Roadhouse.
Right.
I love that we met, once again, we only found this out from the credits, we met another horn.
Yes. Now, do we get anything out of... from his Richard, from his name? Is he named after someone? Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I hear Richard, and on the show, of course, there was Richard Dick Tremaine, but then I also think the actor who plays Ben Horn, Richard Boehmer. But anyway, here's smoking at a booth in front of a blatant no smoking sign. And he's flicking his ashes on the table. He's not even trying to get a cup or put them in there.
No, he's being a very insolent guest.
But let's go back. Sorry, because of this, we skipped the horn part. Looking at this kid, would you imagine he's Audrey's kid? Is he Johnny's kid? Is somehow Ben his actual father and Ben's a super old father like our president Trump is? Any guesses? Because Richard Horn doesn't necessarily make me think of whose child he might be. Maybe he's Jerry's kid. He could be Jerry's kid.
He could be Jerry's kid. And he probably... for my thinking, he looks more like Jerry than he does Ben Horne. But
I actually see a little bit of young Ben in him.
Not really, but there is a little bit.
Oh, I do. Sorry, what do you mean, not really? You're saying I don't really feel that? You could disagree, but to suddenly say not really, thanks a lot.
Well, not really to me, that's all.
Okay.
No, there's a vibe here that it was a little confusing, and I don't know.
What do you mean by that?
When you start watching the scene, I mean, what he really comes off is as this generation's, this version of the show's Bobby.
Oh,
okay. He's smoking where he's not supposed to. He's being kind of a brat. He's mouthing off.
He's belligerent. Yeah.
He's belligerent. He's sort of talking over his head a little bit. But as we see very quickly, he's just an asshole. And I can't. And it's sort of shocking. And either this says something about how much of a villain he is, where nobody actually does anything. The bartender comes over a minute ago to tell him you can't smoke, but apparently,
and he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
But apparently, grabbing a girl by the throat is acceptable. Well,
we didn't see anything come of him being very rude to this girl, Charlotte. But before Charlotte came over, we did see Deputy Chad off duty. Deputy Chad.
Well, off duty from the sheriff's department, but not from his other job.
His side gig.
Yeah.
And this last week, we had a bunch of people. We even talked about it when we found out, there's these drugs coming down from Canada, all these things. A kid at the high school OD'd. And so many people thought, is Bobby Briggs still involved? But then you had somebody make fun of the log lady, as Deputy Chad did last week. And you thought, okay, this guy is no good. And we find out this week, we don't know what, but he's on the take.
Yeah.
Literally, Richard Horne hands him a cigarette pack filled with hundreds. This is a dirty cop. Deputy Chad is dirty.
Deputy Chad is very dirty. And yeah, this guy's a real jerk. I do wonder if this is for... It doesn't necessarily mean that he's involved in any new drug dealing, but obviously he's up to no good. And we'll see. We'll see where
this is why I love it so much. It is intriguing. Last week, we met Deputy Chad. This week, we're finding out, yes, he's not just a douche, but he's also a double D, a dirty dude.
I mean, he could be a really good villain, but what I can't help but wonder about is, I got an idea for you.
Let's hear it.
What if... Yeah. We don't really know exactly what happened. We know what happened to Mr. Nibbler in the bank. Many.
Del Nibbler. Yeah.
Yeah, with his glasses. So we assume that we don't actually know that Audrey is no longer with us. So
that's true.
So what if instead he is Audrey's son from?
Oh no, Justice Jack Wheeler.
No, Mr. C.
Oh, wow. So you're saying Mr. C, before he left town, after he had met with Major Briggs, or maybe before he met with Major Briggs.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So that would be awful and terrible.
That would be awful. But if Audrey survives the bank explosion, somehow she's frisky enough to have fun with Agent Cooper, who is really Mr. C at this point. Then she has this devil spawn seed, Richard Horne. And he would take his mom's name? Maybe the fact that his last name's Horne makes us think he should be Jerry's son.
Well, Mr. C left town, and Mr. C left town and disappeared, and they were going to raise the kid, and so
you don't think Audrey would give him the name Cooper, though? I do. Come on.
No, I mean...
I love the idea that you're trying to get Audrey and Cooper together when in our Audrey and Cooper episode you debated that they shouldn't have gotten together.
Well, at the time, they could have gotten together, a few years down the road. But at the time, they should not have. But that's only... I mean, because he's acting like a real villain.
He is.
And Mr. C is... At this point, Mr. C is more of an anti-hero.
What do you mean? He's a pretty big villain. What are you talking about? He shot a woman in the head.
He does...
What an anti-hero. Come on.
Well, look, when we get to him, when we get to him, then we'll talk about it.
All right, sure. Once again, I am buying in. I may be seeing more than the show has presented through 5 hours, but now Twin Peaks has me intrigued. Now Twin Peaks as a location. Okay, I know what Hawk's up to. Okay, I see Shelley. I see the issues she's having with her family. But remember, she also kind of winked at somebody at the bar, Balthazar Getty. Mm-hmm. I see that James is there. I don't know anything about him. But I see the sheriff's station. The sheriff's station presented us with community problems like these drugs coming down. Now I find out that one of the deputies is dirty. Like, these things are intriguing me. And so I'm getting more into it.
I'm not there yet,
okay.
and I'm not, because for me the larger story is really Coop. So I'd prefer to not see, as much as I love Ernie Niles, I don't want to see another Dead Dog Ranch, bust going down.
Right.
I want to see more, and I want to see it now.
Let's go to a place I know you love, and that is Vegas, baby.
Oh, Las Vegas.
And the episode actually opens in Vegas, the home of Dougie Coop, Mr. Jackpots, as well as a lot of hitmen and a lot of what you would call evildoers.
Yeah, a lot of evildoers, some bad parenting, some incompetent car thieves, and
we start off on the image that really starts to make me think maybe we are in a dream world. We live inside a dream because we're up at the Rancho Rosa development. Yeah, the Double R development complex. And so as we go through this section, see how many kind of echoes of Twin Peaks there are.
What if Norma owns this development?
No, you know what I mean. If you had a dream, you would take, images and process them kind of subconsciously, surreally. And so here, the Double R certainly means a lot to Cooper because he had so many dinners there that he loved, so many desserts he loved. And so now he processes in his dream world, the Double R, as now a development complex. And so let's just keep going. Because we'll talk about this dream as it goes more and more and more. So we see those two hitmen who are supposed to kill Dougie Jones. They somehow believe that Dougie Jones is still in this house because Dougie's car hasn't left.
Right.
Maybe this scene actually takes place the same night that Dougie's winning all that money in the casino. Because you don't think they would wait multiple days outside this house for this car to blow up, do you?
No, I would not think that at all. And it does seem to line up that way a little bit, yeah. So, but what we have learned is that these guys are going to collect the $50,000 that Dougie owes somebody, Lorraine or Jean, the fellow driving the car. Or Lorraine is the
woman who's
dispatcher.
Upset with them. Yeah, hey, you haven't finished this.
So they're waiting to do it. They're hanging out, and she's reporting to somebody.
Mess. She is a mess.
She's terrified. She's reporting to somebody, and she's afraid to give them the bad news. So are we assuming that this is Mr. C she's reporting to, or is this maybe the fellow we saw in Vegas the first time around who was giving someone orders to go take care of something?
Right. Remember, in that, I believe it was in part one, we saw those two guys in Vegas.
In a nice office in Vegas.
Right. And he said, here's the money. Tell her she's got the job. Maybe the person who has the job was this Lorraine. Lorraine has the job to hire these hitmen to kill Dougie Jones. Now, Lorraine makes a call. We later find out from her BlackBerry. And so what year is this again? We think it's what you would call 2014 or the present of the show's timeline. But the fact she's rocking an old BlackBerry has made people wonder what's happening.
She has an old BlackBerry, but Jean in the car has a much more modern-looking phone. I don't know if it's an iPhone or...
True. So she calls Argentina. When she calls, and it hits this device that doesn't even look like a phone in this creepy basement, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And it beeps, and there's a message. Is she trying to reach Agent Philip Jeffries? And I'm only throwing that out because Agent Philip Jeffries was in South America in Fire Walk with Me.
And apparently
so
is chatting up with Mr. C through the magic briefcase.
That's true. So our next scene in Vegas is good old Dougie Coop. Mr. Jackpots, he's been kicked out of the house with his wife, and it's time to go to work. It's time to do a typical Dougie Jones day, but Dougie Coop is still catatonic. He's still messed up, but he does have an emotional moment that worked for me, and that was when he looked over at Sonny Jim and a tear started to shed. Like the innocence that the boy has brought out something in him, brought out some emotion in him that I really, really liked.
Yeah, it was a nice little moment, but he doesn't act on it. He doesn't really change his behavior. He has that emotional reaction, but then he just gets dropped off at work.
Yeah, he's still not doing well. He's still slow, and he doesn't know who he's supposed to pay the $50,000 to.
Right, exactly. He's got to call someone today to so they can work it out. That's what lovely Naomi Watts is telling him to do, and he doesn't quite do anything. In fact, he gets dropped off. I do love Dougie Coop, how he rides in an elevator, and I wish most people did.
Instead of staring at the door, you want to stare at the other passengers like Dougie Coop does.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't turn around. So she drops him off. And
Janie Jones drops him off, and we should note that Dougie Coop is not wearing a wedding ring. Did it end up somehow in the belly of Major Briggs?
Well, I don't.
It did, obviously, or some ring. We assume it's his wedding ring. Some ring.
No, it's definitely a wedding ring, and it ended up in someone's belly for sure. I don't think that's Major Briggs, though.
How can you not think that? After we saw the scene later, we're going to get to at the Pentagon where they say somebody hit Major Briggs's prince from Buckhorn, South Dakota. How can you not put two and two together?
Oh, because it happened 16 times.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But I think this is the one that works. I think this is it.
So 15 other times
his prints popped up.
But that time, yeah, I'm not sure how you're arriving at that.
Come on. I think
he's been killed 15 times?
No. So I think they found his print 16 times. Like, we found some prints here that match Major Briggs. And then they go and they say, okay, well, this turned out to be nothing.
Well, for that to be true, then Briggs has been alive.
Alive, yeah.
Yeah, he's been alive this whole time, basically.
Jumping through time, maybe. I don't know. Well, we don't really know enough to go on. But I guess I've always kind of thought the body in the bed in Buckhorn was Major Briggs. To me, it's the only thing that made sense. And so last week we found out you couldn't ID the body because it was blocked by the military. Today we find out the Pentagon says, the Major Briggs print popped up again. I think this is it. I think there's no other way to read it, honestly.
Well, it could be, but he's been, like Cooper, he's been disappeared then for 25 years. We don't know where or, doing what. And, I mean, if you're going there only because we saw his head floating, I get
Not
that.
only. No, to be honest, before his head floated, I kind of suspected it might be Briggs.
Yeah, I mean, look, it could be, but I think there's so many other things that could be. There's just, I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully we find out. Maybe it's the Russian from The Sopranos. We'll never know.
If that happens, you'll win a prize.
Awesome. So we go to Coop's office.
So we go to Coop's office, Dougie Coop's office. Dougie Coop, I know some people last week talked about him being annoying them because they want their regular Coop. They don't want baby brain Coop. But the way he loved coffee, the way he followed coffee, I loved that bit of humor. And I do love the idea that all of these little flashes are bringing back Agent Cooper. I know we want it to be quicker, but all of these little flashes, there's something about it that is bringing back the Agent Cooper we know and love. So I do like that.
Well, we hope.
Yeah, that's a good point. We hope that's happening.
Yeah, we hope. And there are, and he's realizing certain things. And
he saw the statue outside of the lawman with a gun. He followed the coffee all the way to the meeting. He pulls a Agent Cooper-like device where Agent Cooper could automatically tell if people were lying or telling the truth. Now, Agent Cooper didn't have this bizarre kind of
we never saw
lighting effect that we saw before. But Dougie Coop, Mr. Jackpots, he has this lighting effect. He's able to call out people. Sure. You're lying.
And that gives me, a little bit of hope because a lot of what he's been saying is completely nonsensical. But for... he's just saying, coffee, or, he can't even speak. And then to have this realization and say, oh, you're lying. Like, okay.
Right,
so
that was one of
the wheels are turning a little more than there's still waters run deep, apparently. But,
right, and that was one of the few things Dougie Coop has ever said that he's not just repeating the last word somebody else said.
Right.
So normally, even coffee, it was because somebody else said, here's your coffee.
Yeah.
A lot of times he is just repeating some words. And even in this episode, he still does it more about case files and stuff.
Case files, but, going back to hello, like all that. Yeah, for sure. So he challenges his buddy, played by Tom Sizemore, looking better than ever. And apparently he is lying about an insurance investigation. They're going to pay a claim. So... Some sort of fraudulent activity is going on where this guy is involved in insurance. He's the inside man involved in an insurance scam or something to that effect. Which Cooper calls him out. I hope all that the only reason why that's important is just to get Coop being an investigator again. I don't want to know where the insurance investigation goes.
Well, you're right. I may not care about where this true investigation goes, but would you not imagine then that this somehow ties in to Dougie Jones's $50,000 kind of scam? Is it possible that Dougie Jones is also an insurance investigator scam artist?
Possibly.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, possibly, but his real issue is that he owes $50,000 to people who want to kill him. I mean, look, if he and Tom Sizemore were ripping people off together and Tom Sizemore's going to get upset, okay, but that's the kind of thing where I'm just not...
You're not intrigued.
I'm not intrigued by that at all, no.
Once again, I'm just going to be you're my doppel, Bubba, because I am intrigued. I do think this is all going to tie in some way. Once again, I'm maybe seeing things that aren't there, or maybe I'm projecting on what I want to see. But you add in later, we're about to jump to the Silver Mustang again.
Mm-hmm.
There are intriguing ideas in every location for me. And so I want to learn more. I am digging into the world. I want to be an investigator just like Coop is, I guess.
Okay, but I just don't think that any of them are, as of yet, as intriguing as how do we get Coop home? How do we get Coop back to, what he used to be? And I'd like, if that happens in hour 18, I'm going to be very annoyed. So I'd like to see him back and actually... back in action, back in the saddle with somebody whose last name is Truman, trying to figure out how to stop Bob and Bob's minions. And
I think, let's just say, do you not think we're going to get that? You don't. I think we are going to get that. I totally think we're going to get that.
Sure. No, but I'd just rather spend much more time there than figuring out insurance scams.
Okay. Well, speaking of scams, at the Silver Mustang Casino, it feels like there is yet more intrigue in scamming in that we find out these two guys, and you only find their names from the credits, Bradley and Rodney Mitchum.
Okay, so brothers.
We assume brothers. Brothers running a casino. What does that make you think? The Horn Brothers running One-Eyed Jacks. Once again, is Vegas just a dream? It's one of the things that certainly has been intriguing me so far. And so they get sick of this one guy. They're like, how in the world could you let somebody win this much money? They beat him up and they fire him and kick him out, and they hand his job off to the next sucker. This is a bit
the next guy. Yeah.
If you remember Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader would take anybody who didn't do too well, get rid of them, and then say, next up. It was the next one not to screw up.
Right. So we wish the new guy good luck. We do see our friend. If you're a lucky prize winner, one of those prizes may include an autograph from the lovely Amy Shields, who's in this scene.
Yeah, Amy Shields, according to the credits, is named Candy. Is that correct?
Candy, the either the dancing girl or the casino waitress. We're not sure yet, but we know she's going to have a very, very important part.
And she looks lovely here amongst the three casino ladies all dressed as the pink ladies, watching, not very interested in somebody getting beat up.
Yeah,
they've seen it so much, they're like, boring.
Yeah, it's a typical Tuesday at the Silver Mustang Casino. So they drag him out. Now, the only thing I can think of why this might be important is to see the Mitchum brothers looking at the screen and seeing somebody who resembles Mr. C. And
well, they didn't react like that at all. They acted like they'd never seen this person at all.
Well, they acted like that, but it's sort of, I'm trying to find a way for this to actually turn into, in terms of having,
You want all the streams to cross.
Well, no, but it's just, just as we've always talked about, and one of my big criticisms from season 2 is too many characters who really just had no effect on any of the things that I cared about. So I'm sure this casino manager had it coming, but I'd rather see so much other stuff. That's all.
All right, I thought it was a fine introduction to the Mitchum brothers. So once again, I was fine with it. I was intrigued. Obviously, and maybe I'm wrong, but obviously I think this is a storyline we're going to have to watch an awful lot. If acclaimed actor Jim Belushi is here, as well as Amy Shields are here, I think
good things happen.
I think we are going to have some fun times in Vegas. Some people who aren't having a fun time in Vegas is across the street from Dougie Jones' car, the drugged-out mom and her sweet, innocent boy. And boy, was I worried for him when he went over to inspect the car. Now, I have to be honest, once again, I thought the car, it was just a tracking device on the car. But later we found out, no, these guys are just going to get rid of Dougie the simplest way. You start the car, you go by.
And it's a little confusing as to what Gene and Lorraine's tactics are, because if they want to kill this guy and they think he's in the house, why not just kick down the door of the house and shoot him?
Right.
Like there's ways to get that done. So
and ways that won't attract as much cop attention as that. As a car bomb,
yeah.
Right.
So some bad kids roll up, and we see them driving around, and there's certainly echoes of Mike and Bobby, and Mike is the man, and from seasons 1 and 2.
Right, they're just carjacking a car. They've seen it. They've been casing out Rancho Rosa. They know this car hasn't moved in a while. This is a PSA. Don't steal cars, kids.
Don't steal.
Look what could happen to you.
Don't steal cars. The Ford it's a Ford Taurus. It's maybe a 2000 Ford Taurus that they're stealing. I'm just wondering what it would be worth to take this car down to the chop block and sell it for parts. It seems like it's a lot of work for maybe not a lot of money. It's not exactly a new Lamborghini that they're ripping off here. But either way, it doesn't pay off. They die horribly.
Well, it may not pay off, but Lorraine may pay them off, and they may think Dougie Jones is dead. So,
well, there is a dead body there.
A couple.
Yeah, so that they're not going to be able to identify.
Not quickly. No, it got nice and charred.
Right. And then we go to my favorite part of Las Vegas, the car wash.
One of your favorite new characters, Jade.
Jade is a modern woman. Okay, she's proud of what she does. Apparently, everyone in town, especially at the car wash, knows what she does to pay the bills. And
that was a bit bizarre that the guy at the car wash says, "Hey, do you have a new John?" Boy, it's
right. It's
legal in Vegas, isn't it? I guess maybe that's why it's not such a big deal.
I don't think it's legal in outside of Vegas in Nevada, but not in Vegas proper.
Know that a bit too quickly. Mork, you've stumbled over many facts and say things, and then we have to look them up. You're like, let me tell you the exact... How did you know this?
Because I am a student of history. So what does he find, Bubba?
He finds the Great Northern 315 key.
Which fell out of Dougie Coop's pocket.
Right.
And she does the responsible thing. She does. This is the equivalent of having a client wear protection, where she sees the key and, oh gosh, I can just drop it in any post office box and or any mailbox, and it'll get returned to its rightful owner.
Is it possible? And I don't think the answer to this is yes. But Hawk is looking for something that's missing. The key isn't the thing that's missing, right? That's just a key. There's no way that's the key to the case, is it?
I mean, it is a literal key. It could be the key to the case. It was something of Agent Cooper's that's gone missing. I don't know. Should we assume that they haven't been able to get into Coop's room since then because they didn't have the key? Or maybe they would have broken in? Or is this a key to something else, not the room, that he just put it on the key ring?
Oh, boy. Those are all intriguing questions.
So we'll see.
We'll see. So we end Vegas with Dougie Cooper outside. His wife hasn't come to pick him up. She thought he could probably get home okay.
That's a fair assumption.
And he's just staring at this statue.
Yeah, he's ridden. He's delayed his coworkers from beginning their evenings out on the town
with the elevator trick.
Because he doesn't know how to work the elevator. And he goes and he stands at the feet of the lawman statue again. And the wheels are definitely turning. I want them to. See, I think I would rather see, and tell me what you think about this. I would rather see Cooper back at 90, maybe even 70%, with some, he's got some debilitating issues going on that he has to overcome.
Right.
I'd rather see that than see him work his way slowly back to being full Coop. And then, so.
Are you going to be okay? I keep mentioning the pace. Are you going to be okay if we're with Dougie Coop, Mr. Jackpots Coop, for the next... we're only on part 5 of 18. Is it possible we could have him for the next 5 episodes, next 5 parts? Are you going to be okay with that, Mork? Because you rated this one really low.
Yeah, if we're just seeing him do this, then I'd rather not see him at all.
Whoa, I disagree. I love Dougie Coop. He might be one of my favorite things in the show.
Yeah, it's dragging on a little bit for Mork.
Okay.
But, another episode or two. And it depends also, along the way, what some of the clues are. Part of him kind of, he's reconstructing his brain.
Right.
And also, one would think, well, he's reconstructing his brain. Let's just say that. So I'd rather, but some of the things, they're so incidental.
Okay.
It's case files. He hears it's case files, and so he's, case files, So
well, how about this? Do you want a big jerk, like suddenly, if it wasn't coffee, is it suddenly cherry pie where he jerks up and he goes, Okay. Or is it okay that if it is a gradual thing, he got minusculely better after one day? Is it possible?
Yeah, that definitely does give me hope that this is day one, and all he needs is a good night's sleep and a little bit more coffee and some cherry pie, and he'll be back.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah. So, but if it's going to take some time, I would like these incidental, sort of clues, these breadcrumbs to maybe have a little bit larger effect, sort of down the road, where it's part of solving, the larger mystery of how he's going to get back, or capture Mr. C, or kill Bob, or whatever it is, in fact, that he's going to be doing this year, which I don't know. Right. I don't know yet. So,
well, let's finish up all the other stories because they all revolve around Mr. C. Mm-hmm. In Buckhorn, they've done the autopsy on the body I believe to be Major Briggs's body. And in the belly, they didn't find any food. They found this, what I believe is a wedding ring, to Dougie with love, Janie. It was in Garland Briggs's belly.
You think Garland Briggs's belly?
Okay. If that's not true, then I'll go with you and I'll rate the episode a 5 or 4 or 3. Give me a break.
I think you're reaching I think you're reaching a little bit.
All right. Okay.
So
everybody, what's your Twitter handle, Mork? If everybody thinks you're reaching a lot,
I'm not arriving at that conclusion.
You're not arriving at any.
But there's nothing to arrive at. There's no conclusion to arrive on.
Oh my God! It is. It's Major Briggs. Accept it.
If people think that I'm being deliberately obtuse, please tell me all about it at Extraordinary on Twitter.
All right,
go for it.
So now, in the opposite side of South Dakota, I think Mr. C in his jail cell, he sounds the most like Cooper I've ever thought he sounded, and that is he's laying in his jail cell, and he said, "And now food is coming."
Right.
Which is a real Cooper thing. Mm-hmm. He always had premonitions. He could always tell. Mm-hmm. Even in Fire Walk With Me, he had a premonition of Albert. He's saying she's preparing a mass quantity of food. Mm-hmm. And even the delivery of the line, to me, it really sounded the way Cooper would say a line, as opposed to the way Mr. C has said all his lines so far.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get some nice flashbacks to remind us of how Mr. C came to be. He's the Doppelkoop with Evil Bob. And then they had Mr. C look in a mirror in what I found was really subtle effects work, where while we were watching Mork, you looked over at me and said, "Do you see what's going on with his mouth?"
Right.
And it seems to be they are overlaying just bits and pieces. It's not a full takeover. Frank Silva, a.k.a. Bob's face over Coop. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I think it was really, really well done. And what it made me think about as he's looking into, and in just this whole scene. So he's in jail. He's at this point, Mr. C we know is a very very smart and powerful and ruthless guy.
Oh yeah.
So it's very clear from him laying on his jail cell that he's in there for a specific reason. He's behaving that way.
Oh yeah.
And so the food does come, and he waits for the guard to go away, and he goes, and we have this little flashback to the mirror, not just in the Black Lodge, but in the Great Northern.
Yeah, the final scene of the series,
where we left Coop last time, or so we thought, and we see the overlay, and he's saying, "You're still with me." Good.
Now, okay, if I jump to conclusions, I think the only conclusion you can make and say is Major Briggs' body. You agree with me that the only way you can take this line is to say that Mr. C says, "Bob, you're still with me," and that's good.
Well, okay, yeah, and are you going? I wasn't sure if you were going somewhere else. So what I'm thinking of when I see him, say that in that way is that Mr. C might be somehow in charge of Bob. Mr. C is not talking to Bob like he works for Bob, like he's talking to him as if they're equals somehow. And
right, but also just the very line, to me it reads as, well, Bob could leave Mr. C, and Mr. C would be worried about that. We had the call at the end of part 2 where Mr. C was on the phone call, and the person on the other end of the line, who he originally thought might be Philip Jeffries, but said, I will be with Bob. It's like people want to be with evil Killer Bob for a bit, which is very, very odd.
Right, but he's not saying, please, Mr. Bob, stick around, and I promise you it's going to pay off. You can trust me. I'm the one to bet on. He's not saying that. He's saying
you're with me. That's good.
Right. So, but he doesn't seem to be afraid of Bob. He doesn't seem to be nervous about dying, which we've talked about would happen. if there's too many, if there's too many Coops. We saw
right, only one
before.
can live.
Only one can live. So is he either going to be with Mr. C or with Philip Jeffries or with Dougie Coop? I mean, we don't know.
We don't know. But once again, that scene in the mirror, I found it was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Then, let's just follow up on this and get to the Pentagon. Who thought we would ever go to the Pentagon in Twin Peaks in Arlington, Virginia? We have actor...
After reading Secret History, you can
that's
see
a good call. That's a good call.
Yeah.
And so we have Ernie Hudson, and he's greeting in...
Cindy.
Officer Cindy. In the credits, her name is like a Cynthia, but here he refers to her as Cindy, and she is going to investigate.
Right.
In Buckhorn. Mm-hmm. So we have two investigators sent. We have Tammy Preston, who we're going to get to in a little bit, investigating in eastern South Dakota at the prison, while now in western South Dakota, Buckhorn, we're going to have Cindy here from the military. What's interesting is you have mentioned there are all these wild goose chases about, okay.
Yeah, 16th time.
Right. And so maybe it was like, we thought we saw him. It doesn't necessarily mean there have been 16 times that his fingerprints have popped up, I want to think.
Well, if there's been a hit, it has to at least mean that they've at least found his fingerprints. The way they said it the first time, it almost made me think that they found 16 bodies with fingerprints like this.
Possibly. Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll she's going there, but
she's going there.
We now have. But if just to go back, quickly to where we ended on episode 4 was we had Albert and Cole going. They knew someone they could go to talk about this and get to the bottom of this. We still haven't seen them.
No,
they were in Buckhorn, South Dakota.
No, they were in eastern South Dakota where the prison is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they were with Mr. C.
Right.
So I want to see where they go soon, and I hope it doesn't take her that much as much time as it's taken Cole and Rosenfeld to get to where they need to be. But
don't you see once again how the streams might come together? Here we have this general telling Cindy that, hey, if it is Briggs, we're going to have to let people in on this. We're going to have to tell the FBI. It's almost foreshadowing how Gordon, Albert, Tammy Preston are going to suddenly become aware of the Buckhorn case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that would be great. But what I can't figure out is how that, is that going to put them on a collision course with Mr. C? Is that going to help them find, Dougie Coop? A couple.
Well, they already. What do you mean? The collision course to find Mr. C? They're with Mr. C. You mean is that going to make the military find Mr. C? What do you mean?
Well, Mr. C's involvement in Ruth
Buckhorn,
Preston's murder, right, and and decapitating what you think is Major Briggs. What I'm not convinced about yet, but we'll see.
We'll see Mr. C in a bit. But before then, I do want to take some time to talk about this Tammy Preston scene.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something, it's a silent scene, but there is something about the way that she is looking at Cooper's photograph, the old Cooper's photograph, not Mr. C's photograph, that reminded me, at least, of the way Cooper used to look at Laura's photograph, or anybody would look at Laura's photograph.
I was thinking something a little bit different as she was looking at it, and just for a moment, I was thinking, this is somebody who, I mean, it's maybe after hours, so she's wearing a lace shirt, which is not exactly FBI issue.
I didn't even notice her outfit, but sure.
But she's an attractive, slender, dark-haired special agent, and she was looking at the picture, and I was thinking, well, could Coop be her dad? But she seems to be comparing. She seems to have noticed something by comparing what I assume are Coop and Mr. C's fingerprints. Maybe there's a slight difference.
That's what I thought as well.
There's something she's picking up on it, and she's studying them, and hopefully we'll know what she's been staring at.
Now, one thing that people online have been talking about is that if you look at Mr. C's arrest report, and it flashed up briefly in episode 4, and sure enough, she's looking at a similar arrest report here on her computer screen. If you look at that, Mr. C's quote-unquote birth date is the exact same birth date as the one that showed up on Bill Hastings' arrest report. And it was way younger than Kyle MacLachlan / Mr. C should have been. It had him born in the 70s, where it should have been much older. Then also on that Mr. C arrest report it had Mr. C's birthplace as Buckhorn, South Dakota,
right.
which also wouldn't be true of what we knew of Cooper from a tie-in book way back in the 90s entitled My Life, My Tapes, where it said Cooper was from Philadelphia. So there are all sorts of intriguing things, and you're right. It feels like, how is it possible that Mr. C has different fingerprints than Cooper? Very odd, very odd. Now, Mr. C finally gets his phone call, which we heard about once again in the last part 4, where Albert wants it recorded so he can learn about it. And we get some special electricity mumbo-jumbo.
Yes.
Which, to me, really reminded me of the scene in Fire Walk With Me, where Cooper was looking at the security camera and then walking back, and then looking at the security camera and looking back.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
And now he is
and
here.
We even have a hallway very similar to that hall.
But now we have the thing where Cooper, Mr. C, is really evil. He's staring people down. And once again, he's going to call Buenos Aires, Argentina. And he first says, I'm going to call Mr. Strawberry, and the warden acts real funny.
Right.
Like, this is somebody he knows.
Right.
What this makes me think of is if in the original series when they arrested Leland Bob / knew stuff he shouldn't have. Like when he turned to Agent Cooper and he said, yeah, like what happened to you in Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so Mr. C knows stuff that seemingly can disturb people. Like, how did he know about whoever this Mr. Strawberry is? And he's got special powers just because entering a bunch of digits into the phone, he can F up the whole prison's network.
Well, that's all you got to do. I mean, people have known that for years. No, this is a secret trick he has.
When he downloaded the prisons, remember he downloaded all the prison's files at the end of part 2, so somehow there's a rational explanation for this. You wouldn't think so, but boy, this is,
It strains credulity, but that this would be, how to do this would be included in the blueprints to the prison.
how to put an infomercial on one of the security camera feeds.
How to put a cooking show in an infomercial. And then he says a secret code, and they can't hear what he says. Now, he says the cow jumped over the moon, and I don't know why he'd be afraid of someone recording that. But apparently, he's creating all this noise and hubbub, so they can't hear him say that. Why they couldn't hear him say it, I don't know. But he says it, and where do we go to?
Buenos Aires. It goes down to South America, your neck of the woods, Mork.
Hey.
Do you want to say anything about this? Anything you want to know?
There's a ton I want to know. I love this room. We seem to be in some sort of...
I call it a basement. There's nothing to say it necessarily is a basement, but that's what I thought because we're going down.
Right, but it also looks like there's files up on some of these shelves. Like this could be, a very important, all of the, there's info on the Mr. Strawberries of the world in this, secret apartment in the basement of a decrepit building in downtown Buenos Aires. But we're bearing the lead here. So he says the code, and then the super black box just transforms itself. It disappears. It turns into. It doesn't look like a little gold bead,
like the decoy Dougie Jones turned into. Yeah,
right.
But it has the same feel as that. You know what I mean? It has the same feel of turning into a little metal ball, just like Dougie Jones did. All right, so hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon.
Oh,
any way you can think of any clues come from this?
Well, I know Mr. C likes to diddle. But that is probably it. The Cat and the Fiddle is, of course, is it still in business? And it's a bar in Hollywood. I don't know if it's still in business.
They moved.
Have they moved? Are they still around? Yeah. No, I have no idea, and that's okay. But I'm more interested in what did the black box turn itself into, and we're sort of rubbing up against what I talked about last week in terms of trying to explain the unexplainable. I'm okay with a lot of this being unexplainable. If it makes sense, emotionally, then it's like, okay. I don't need to know the mechanics of how does a magic black recorder box turn into, and why does it turn into this little, gold. It doesn't. I can't really make it out what it is. It's bigger than the bead that Dougie turned into.
So yeah, you don't care how it happens. But that said, what kind of emotion can it give you, though? If you're saying it's got to pay off emotionally, there's no emotion to pay off, really, in a black box you don't understand, turning into a...
Well, no. But of course, I don't have any emotional stakes in the black box. Right. But how it's going to affect, our friends, Coop and Laura and maybe even Leland, all of these people who have been, trapped in the Black Lodge. That's what's important to me. So,
all right. Well, earlier you talked about Mr. C being an anti-hero, and I was like, "What are you talking about? He's a villain, an anti-hero." So why don't you further explain that?
Well, I think it was precisely because of the way he was talking to Bob. If he is trying to con Bob, if he's trying to do a switch, I mean, he already is trying to bend the rules of the Black Lodge. He seems to already be doing that based on his conversation with Philip Jeffries. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, he's killing people. He seems to be torturing them.
Yes.
But
most anti-heroes I know aren't this villainous. So
but if he's doing it to defeat Bob, then that for me would qualify him as an anti-hero. Sure. Yeah. If he's because Bob is, as far as we know, Bob is who we want to destroy. So if he's helpful in that. Okay.
Well, I just have never taken it that Mr. C wants to destroy Bob.
Even
in this episode, he said, "You're with me, good."
Right, but just the way that he's not afraid at all, based on the conversation he had with Philip Jeffries a couple episodes ago, you'd think he'd be afraid of doing certain things by a certain time, but no, he's hanging out in a prison. He seems to be in complete control. He knows
that's true. That's completely true.
And so there's no real urgency. So he got some very bad news saying, "Hey, buddy, you're on the clock. You got to get back to the Black Lodge, or else." Mm-hmm. And he doesn't seem to care. So there's a. It's just a kernel right now.
That's what the black box became, as a kernel.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a kernel. It's a kernel of Garmonbosia, and we'll see. We'll see where it ends up. I mean,
we'll Mr. C where it ends up.
We will Mr. C, and we will Mr. C you, double L's.
Double L's.
Loyal listeners.
That's right. We want to hear what you think. We've been getting great feedback.
Yeah.
On our Facebook page, facebook.com/double P podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcast, plural, facebook.com/double P podcast. We've also been getting great feedback on the YouTube channel where we put up the videos, and I love that. YouTubers, if you want to come like the Facebook page, that'd be great as well. Great feedback on Twitter. You can find me, Bubba, on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And Mork is at Extraordinary. That's extraordinary with a W in front of the final R. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what we missed. Tell us what you wish we would talk about a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
We love hearing it, and it really helps us out.
So, next week and for the next future weeks, we're only going to be getting
1 hour.
1 hour for the next couple of weeks. So get ready. We're going to dive into them. Who have we still not yet seen? We still haven't seen Big Ed. Mm-hmm. We still haven't seen Audrey. We still haven't seen a lot of characters that we love. Any of the Haywards. Yeah. We imagine they're coming back. The cast list implies some are coming back. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see them all. My admiration for the series, I still have some problems with the pacing, but my admiration for the series and what it could be is really growing. I think there's a chance that this definitely could add up to be more than the sum of its parts. What is your hopes and thoughts moving forward, Mark?
Well, my hopes are as high as ever. My thoughts, I'm starting to get a little nervous, but we'll see. And I'll remind myself of what we talked about after watching the first 2 hours, where just watch it. Just watch it, take it in, see where it goes, and so we're sometimes we may not be able to see the forest through the trees because we're staring at it so closely, but as of right now, I still got a lot of upside.
And so we'll see you next week on The Gifted
and the Damned
podcast.
Sweeps. 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 Sweeps.